Hey, everyone. Welcome back to Bible in 5 minutes. Today, we're diving into the book of Job, a story that wrestles with one of life's hardest questions. Why do the righteous suffer? Job's trials. The book of Job introduces us to a man named Job who's described as blameless and upright. A man who fears God and shuns evil. Job is blessed with a big family, lots of wealth and honor. But one day in heaven, Satan challenges Job's faith, saying he only serves God because of all his blessings. God allows Satan to test Job, but sets a limit, saying Satan cannot harm Job's life. So Satan takes away Job's children and possessions and even his health, leaving him full of sores. But through all this, Job does not curse God, though he might have every right to. Job's friends, then Job's 3 friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, come to comfort him. But instead of offering words of comfort, they tell him that he must have sinned to deserve this suffering. They say if they were in his shoes, they would have prayed and stopped acting so righteous. And they challenge him to turn back to God, and he'll be restored. Each friend takes a turn speaking, and each time they speak, they add more guilt to Job, piling on more reasons why Job must have done something wrong. And poor Job just gets more and more upset, which he does in a long, passionate speech where he defends himself, insisting he hasn't sinned. He cries out to God, asking why he's being punished. He asks where God was when he was suffering. And he says, I will not be silent. I will speak in the open. I will declare my opinion. I say, I have suffered greatly in my anger. I am wasting away. My hope is that he will know that you can help the living, that your servant is raised up before you. Job's questions. Throughout Job's speeches, he asks the questions we all ask when we suffer. Why me? Where is God in my suffering? Why doesn't he help me? Why doesn't he heal me? Where is God in my suffering? Does he not know I'm suffering? Is he not moved by my pain? Why doesn't he answer me? Or, perhaps most importantly, why do the righteous suffer? It seems like there has to be an answer, right? Well, the book of Job shows us that sometimes there isn't an easy answer. But in the midst of our confusion, God assures us that he is still in control. Even though he may not give us the answers we want or need, he offers us his peace. That's what Job is clinging to here in chapter 3, verse 26. For I know that my Redeemer lives, and that at the last he will stand upon the earth, and after my skin has been thus worn away, yet without my sight I will see him. For myself, I know that my Redeemer will live, that he will stand at last on the earth. And though worms are my bed and dirt my food, yet my heart will lift up my Redeemer. My God is my Savior. God's response now, chapters 3 to 31, are Job's speeches. And in these speeches, he lays out his case. But he doesn't really get any answers. Chapter 31 is actually the longest chapter in the Old Testament. And in those 31 chapters, Job doesn't find any answers. In fact, it's not until chapter 42 that God finally speaks. And he doesn't speak to give Job the answers he's looking for. Instead, he wants to show Job his own greatness. God says, "Who is this that darkens counsel by words without knowledge?" He then asks Job a series of questions about creation, nature, and the universe, showing Job how much he doesn't know. God is basically saying, "You don't understand my ways or my thoughts. Therefore, you will not be able to answer me." And Job realizes this, and when he does, he's completely humbled. He sees how little he knows, and he gives up his desire to understand why he suffered. Instead, he realizes it's not about knowing why, but trusting who is in control. And God confirms this. He says, "Then Job answered the Lord and said, I know that you can do all things, and that no purpose of yours can be thwarted. You have spoken once and twice, but I have not heard you. I have no light in my eyes. But I will not fear. What can man do against you?" At this point, Job has nothing left to say. He realizes he doesn't have any answers, but he chooses to trust God anyway. And as a reward for his faithfulness, God restores Job's fortunes and blesses him even more than before. He gives him double possessions and double family. So the book of Job ends happily ever after. In the end, the book of Job reminds us that suffering is real. Life can be broken. People can hurt us. But God's presence is greater. We might not always have the answers we're looking for, but we can trust in the one who holds all the answers. Join us next time as we begin our journey through the Psalms, a collection of songs and prayers that speak to every season of life. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more Bible summaries. See you next time.